Welcome to Distance Learning for Secondary Math. My name is Susan Carricker and I teach math at Gaucher High School. I'm going to show you a lesson for Algebra 1 that you can use and adapt for your own students for distance learning. I hope you enjoy it. Our lesson today will be about quantities. This would be the standard for real numbers Q1. So we're going to start with this process. The first step in the process is to discover and then explore, practice, and then assess. You'll notice that there is really no end to this, so the student can go through this process multiple times. And this is a self-paced, standards-based learning type of assignment that you're going to see. In each part of the assignment, there are multiple opportunities for kids to use to practice, to read, to listen, and to understand the concept. You can adapt this for your own classes, and you can use all or parts as you see fit. Now on this wheel, you'll notice there's buttons to press, and it says to start with Discover. So I'm going to press this button to go to the screen for Discover. So the first thing the kids are going to do is they're going to read, watch, hear the standard that they're studying. They will have a selection of multiple videos. I think I have 5, maybe 6. But they are told not to watch all the videos on the first cycle, to leave at least 1 or 2 for when they cycle back through the process. They're told not to work out any problems at this stage, but they could play on their calculators and maybe kind of explore as they are watching, or they might draw something that interests them. Students are asked to pause the videos to take thought about what they're seeing if they need to, or if they're not quite sure what somebody said and they want to back up and listen again to see again what they said, that would be good. And also on the screen, depending on how you display these type of activities, it may not be in full screen mode, so they're encouraged to blow it up larger so they can really see what's going on. And also, if students run out of videos and want more, there are probably hundreds of videos for every standard in your course. So feel free to go find them more and give them more videos to watch. So I've added that here for my students. Okay, the next part in the process is to explore. So they're going to interact, participate, and engage with the learning in the explore stage. They'll complete 2 or more activities, and our goal here is to give activities that are engaging and hands-on and something they have to do. It's not just watching and listening. It needs to be something they are having to actively engage with. Students are asked to use pencil, paper, and technology to make sense of what they're doing, to work collaboratively with other students, to ask questions, to talk about it, to share it with others, offer to help others. And again, if the kids ask for more activities, that's where our creativity comes in. We try to come up with more activities for those students to do. One great resource for activities is Twitter. If you're running out of ideas, a great way to find more is to go to Twitter, use the hashtag #ITeachMath, and ask. And somebody probably will have an activity or 2 that you've never thought of for just about every standard. The next part of the process is to practice, practice, practice. This is where they do exercise, complete problems, but without penalty. So this is not really hurting their grade, but they're giving an opportunity to kind of work with the standard. They are asked to work independently, but to ask for assistance occasionally when they get stuck. So hopefully the kids are working on their own and not just copying the work of their teacher or their friends. And because it's not really impacting their grades so much, this will give them a little less fear in attempting the work. And then finally, they will assess. There's 3 parts to the assessment. One is a test of some sort, then a performance task, then reflections. They'll need to complete at least one of those assessments in the first cycle, but not all of them, because they want to leave one for a second cycle. And then they should actively work using pencil, paper, and technology, and then work independently on problems. They should not be asking others for help during the assess part of the assignment. So let's go down here. Down here on the right, there's a little wheel that you can go to all the different parts. So I'm going to click on Discover, and Discover will take me well, let me back up. Discover is going to take me to the first slide in their assignment. So in this part, here's the text of the standard. So they will read the standard here, and then they will click here and they can listen to the standard being read aloud. And then there's videos across the bottom that they can choose to watch. And I tried to pick very different types of examples here. One is just some students working through a problem with this standard, which I found interesting. This came off the Georgia website. I did a little animated GIF up here with a calculator strategy that might apply to this standard, where they're having to set their window and their scale to fit, make this parabola fit. Khan Academy and School 21 are two good sources, and so they have lots to choose from here. They should choose at least 2 of these to discover, and most students are going to spend anywhere from, I would say, 10 minutes to 30 minutes on this page, depending on how many they do on the first cycle. The next part of the process is to explore the standard. And on this page, we have multiple different things that kids can do. And I'm going to show you these in just a moment, but one of them is open middle. There's actually a website dedicated to these types of problems. I've actually created one here, and I'll show you how it works momentarily. There's another website called CK12 Plix. This is, I think, a paid service, but for now it's free, so you might want to check it out. I think maybe parts of it are free and you've got to pay to do more. EdPuzzle is a great place to go. It's actually sitting and listening, but they do have to answer questions about what they're learning. And then Card Sort, this is actually something they're going to do in a Google Doc. And then Desmos is an activity where they're having to modify a graph or talk about, or they're actually going to use a Desmos graphing calculator to modify a graph. So I will show you each of those. So the first exploration we're going to look at is open middle, unit conversion. When I click on this page, it's going to ask me to make a copy. So when you click on it, you're going to make a copy of this document. When you do this particular type of assignment, if you're in Google Classroom, then it would be actually smart to just assign all the pieces in Google Classroom, and then they can choose from there, using this as kind of their guide to choose it. Now what I did is, when I made a copy, is it opened up a Google drawing. And in this drawing, I have all this dimensional analysis. This probably is not the best place for them to start, but if they've watched the videos, they may already know how to do this. Encourage your kids to come back to one of these explorations if they're struggling. So notice it has 2 miles over 1, and I want to convert miles to feet. So I'm going to put 5,280 feet over 1 mile. And then when you multiply this, you do get this answer. And then on this next one, I'm converting hours to minutes, or minutes. And so I've already done the hours to minutes. And so minutes needs to be converted into seconds. So we're going to put one of these 60 seconds here. And so they'll drag and drop that into place. These are actually not that hard to create. I used Equatio to make these mathematical expressions in MathSpace, and then I used the equation editor and some shapes, and I grouped them so that they would be all bright and colorful so that kids could drag those into place. So this is something you could do, and then they will drag and drop this into place. So an open middle is where you have the question and the answer, at least for most of these, and then they just simply fill in the blanks in between. You could continue scaffolding and creating more of these if you wanted to. The next thing we're going to look at is Desmos, how to modify a graph. When they click on the link, it will bring them into a Desmos graph that I've already created for them. So I've titled the graph, I've added some notes here using this plus sign. There's a way to add notes. I've made a table of values, I've given them instructions, and I've already kind of started the process. So I'm basically having them do just the part of the process that relates to the standard, which is working on the scale of the graph. So they will click on the wrench, they will modify the scale, and they will try to get as many points as they can on these grid lines. The next part of the process we're going to look at is a card sort. So these are pretty easy to do. You can use different software to do it, but I just used a Google Doc for this one. Now when they come into their Google Doc, what I've got for them here are some screenshots from a graphing calculator. You can use TI Connect for free to create your own screenshots of TI calculators. So if you have a Texas Instruments calculator, you can make screenshots of windows, of graphs, of anything you can put on the screen, and then you can have kids drag and drop those or sort those. So that's exactly how I created these. And so here I have a window. It looks like, let's see, -2 to 6 is going to be this one or this one. It's saying the highest point is 60. Well, if you look at this graph, that point's at 52, so that one looks like it would be at 60. So I'm just going to drag this one over here, or I could drag the window over there. The next one says -5 to 5, 0, 8. The Y max is at 10, so this one looks right, and this one looks right. So really all I had to do was make one change to get these all lined up. The next exploration will be at CK12 Plix City Blocks. When you come into Plix, you will have different activities, and so you can go to their website and do a search to find many more. But on this one, they're going to basically drag and drop, and so it's an interactive experience where they can kind of learn about the units on the graph. They kind of discover on their own that the scale here needs to be, and then it'll ask questions when they click challenge. Each block is 200, so they're talking about scale here. How many blocks long is the purple path? So the purple path would be this one, and so it would have to be 1,000. But how many blocks? If they're each 200, there would be 5. And so they would submit. And then it'll tell them it's right. And if it's not, it'll give them some more. So they're just activities. They're usually pretty short. There's 5 questions in this particular challenge. And the final exploration is EdPuzzle, how to convert units. So let's go to EdPuzzle and see what that looks like. Now in EdPuzzle, I found a YouTube video, actually on YouTube, and I came to EdPuzzle and input the URL for that video, and then I inserted questions. So if you'll look down here at the bottom, these are places where I have inserted questions or comments for the students to answer. So it's more than just sitting and watching a video. It's actually some kind of questioning. And it is a form of assessment, but I'm not really counting this against my students as long as they're coming in and doing this. This is still just the exploration stage. But this actually has somebody setting up one of these dimensional analysis problems with them. So if they were stuck on the open middle, this would help them get through that part of the activity in the exploration. EdPuzzle is a great resource. If you've never looked at it, there's videos already in here with questions already attached, and then you can create your own. You can use videos you created yourself. So it's really a nice tool. Once kids have finished a couple of the things on this page, they're going to basically go on to another activity, or the next part of the cycle, which includes practice. Now the practice is a little more extensive, requires a little more effort. I would say they're going to spend most of their time probably on this page. And so there's 5 options here. They should not do all of them in the first option. Quizizz is a very fun activity that you may have heard of. If not, I'm going to show you. But we're going to go through some of these so you can see the different possibilities. Let's start with Khan Academy. When students click on the Khan Academy link, I had them come directly to the part that I wanted them to look at. And so in this case, it's really practice in the middle of a unit. Some students may decide to go back and do the other parts of this lesson, and that would be great. But I don't want to give them too much practice, because mainly I'm focusing on one specific skill for each one of the explorations I'm giving them. The great thing about Khan is it does give them videos and hints, so if they're stuck in their practice, they can get extra help and see how to do the problems. The next part of this practice is CK12 Practice. It's the same site I used earlier for the exploration, but this is a different part of that site. So let's take a look. When they come to this site, they're going to have an opportunity to do some practice. It will monitor their progress. It will give them hints. If they make errors, it gives them more. So it really is kind of intuitive in how it helps the kids. Not all of this site is free, but the kids do get a little bit of practice for free. So I tell the kids, if you run out of problems, just move on to the other parts of your practice. It's a great way to really practice without penalty. The next thing under practice we're going to take a look at is Quizizz for dimensional analysis. This one is probably the kids' favorite site for practice. Let's look at it. When kids come to Quizizz, they're going to be linked directly to a quiz to play the quiz, flashcards, or challenge friends. One cool thing about Quizizz is kids can find their own quizzes. So if they don't like the one you gave them, there's multiple quizzes in there. And I encourage kids to pick out other quizzes to play for practice. One cool feature they have for these flashcards, for Quizizz, is the flashcards. And so this is what they look like if you click on those. And then the kids can basically flip through these. It'll ask them questions, and then it'll tell them the answers. And they can click Got It or Needs Review. And so flip. So it's another way to go through the quiz without actually going through the game itself. One of the added benefits of Quizizz is that you can create your own. So you don't have to find ones that are already there. You can create a brand new quiz for your class. So feel free to use that in any way that you want. Let's take a look at the next one, which is Desmos Choosing a Scale. This Desmos activity is with the Activity Builder, and you can create activities yourself using the Activity Builder. And so I've given them just a really short little practice set here of choosing scales for graphs and then talking about it. So I'm going to go through the screens to kind of show you what this one looks like. I've just given some random graph here and told them what's coming in the first screen. It's more like a title page. And then in this one, they're given a graph and they're given things that you could do to improve the graph. So they're choosing which of these options would make this graph better. And specifically, we're referring to scale because scale and labels are what this standard calls for. And then here's a data, which scale would make the most sense for the vertical axis or the y-axis. And so they look at their y's, not their x's, and choose a scale here. And then they're given the option to explain their thinking. And if you're doing this in class, this will be previewed on the screen for all the kids. But even if kids are doing this distance learning, these comments that students make here will show up on their screen so that they can read some other students' comments. This is a great way for kids to get feedback and to give feedback to other students. And then it goes on to say match. I love these. So you can put in graphics and then you will match the scale to the graphics. So this is 0.5. This scale goes with this one. This is hard on phones, by the way. So if you do create these, so be sure you're choosing to use, I'm going to move these up so you can see them. But what I've done is I've created graphics, and you can put the scale with the graphic. If I can get it to stick, there you go. Anyway, it's just a card matching activity, and you can create those yourself. And then this one talks about which units would be chosen to represent this function. So we're talking about the scale is in increments of what, and so it refers to the units that are being used with that scale. So they're using the units in this graph. And then finally, what are the units for 2 and the units for 300, and explain what the 0.2 300 means in this context. They are asked to draw on the graph here. So they're plotting a point. This is a good way to kind of test to see who knows how to do that. Draw or circle this point. What are the units for 2 and 300? 2 would be 2 minutes. 300 would be 300 milliliters. The last part of this practice is MathIExcel, unit conversion, another free site for just practicing conversion problems. So when they go into IXL, they will be given practice problems and they will input answers and submit. If they get it right, it'll tell them. If it doesn't, it's going to give them some hints and it'll ask them to try again. It will give them a timer and a smart score, but just be aware, unless you're paying for this service, they will run out of problems. So just let the kids know there's a limited number if you don't have a membership. So just a few problems to practice here. So let's go on to the assess part. So they can click on the button assess, or they can just go down to the next slide. It says assess, and there's 3 parts to the assessment: reflections, performance task, and test. Most students start with the test, but I usually suggest they wait till the end to do the test. The reflections is where they will go into a Google document and talk about each part of the process. This is one way of you holding them accountable for doing the exploration and for doing the practice. You ask them, what did you explore? What did you practice? And ask for specific things about that. So I use a Google document and a form for them to fill out for that. The performance task is a Google document where they have to actually do a problem, and then the test can be pretty much any kind of test you would normally give, but it needs to be probably digital if you're doing this distance learning. So let's take a look at the reflection. In the reflections document, I asked them first to discuss 3 of the videos that they watched. What did you notice? What did you wonder? You can ask much more specific questions. I usually start out with general questions like this, and when I discover kids are just writing nonsense, I'm more specific with my questions to get better answers. And then under explore, same thing. Which 3 activities did you do? And then ask them which one they like best and why. You might also ask them which ones gave you trouble, and that way if there's something wrong with one of the activities, you can omit it from future classes. And then practice, same thing. So that's pretty much all the reflection is to reflect on the activities in practice and tell me what they thought. Next, let's take a look at the performance task. In the performance task, the students are asked to gather and record data and to create graphs of that data. And so I've given them some suggestions here. If you've never done performance task work with your students, it's recommended that you give them lots of structure, scaffolding, and you may want to do these together the first time and then just kind of back off and give them more independence as they get comfortable. But I've given them 3 options: time walking, distance traveled. They can generate their own data. They can create random data as long as it's reasonable, and they can find data online and cite the source. The second one is time of day and temperature, so they could actually record the temperature throughout the day using their smartphone or by going to a website. Shoe size and arm span, this would be easy to gather data, even as a whole class. The options for the graph is to create it on graph paper, take a photo and insert it into this document. They can plot on Desmos, and I've already set up a template for them so they wouldn't have to do too much. They would need to adjust their window and include labels. And then finally, they can create a Google drawing. And so I've given them graph paper and a Google drawing that they can actually draw on top of. They're not limited to those options, so but I like to give them a specific tools so that they have somewhere to get started. And then I always include this statement: plagiarism is a crime. Warn students they are not allowed to copy another person's work. They are not allowed to go cut and paste from websites. And if they do need some data or information from our website, they can use it if they provide the source that they got the data from and cite that source, link to that source. The last part of this process is to take a test. Now, the test that I've chosen is from Edulastic. So let's take a look. The test in Edulastic can be taken on any type of mobile device, desktop or phone. And it does give you the option of viewing it in one of those. It is just a multiple choice test. It does have some fill in the blank. You can do drag and drop, and you can create your own items. So they will go through here and take a test. This gives good data, and you are allowed to let kids go back in and modify or correct their work. I hope this has given you some ideas of things you can do with your class for distance learning. Discover, explore, practice, assess. Feel free to use any part of this assignment or any of the things you've linked out to with your own students. Have a great day.